Welcome back to Terp Trends. In today's episode, I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Jimmy Lane. Originally from Tennessee, Jimmy moved to Pennsylvania to join Terravida Medical Dispensary, where he started as the manager. He quickly transitioned into the buyer role, using his expertise to shape the company's product offerings and establish strong industry connections. But Jimmy's journey didn't stop in Pennsylvania. He went on to make his mark in multiple states, including West Virginia and Illinois. The conversation was so rich and insightful that we had to split it up into two parts. In this first episode, we'll dive into Jimmy's early days in the cannabis industry, his time at Terravida, and transitioning into larger markets. Stay tuned for part 2, where we explore his experience in the opening dispensaries, developing the infusion facilities, and his thoughts on the future of the cannabis industry. This is Terp Trends. Let's dive in.
Hey Pete, what's up, man? I appreciate you having me on. Thank you. Been seeing what you're doing. Loving everything that's going on with Terp Trends. So definitely feel privileged and honored to be here. My name is Jimmy Lane. And I moved to PA in 2018. Kind of transitioned out of some traditional industries to get professionally involved in the cannabis industry. uh, Began my career in Pennsylvania as a store operations manager in early 2018. That lasted for almost a year, not quite a year, before I transitioned into the senior buyer position for that same dispensary. Who, when I came, we had one dispensary, and by that time we had transitioned to three dispensaries in southeastern Pennsylvania. So spent a great deal of time doing that. Probably the next little bit more than 3 years doing that. At one point, that particular operation was purchased by a multi-state operation who I worked with and for I can't even remember now. I guess it was just a few months or so, which was a eye-opening experience, a good experience. I think all experiences, whether positive or negative, really, I don't feel like any of them are negative. I feel like we learned a little bit from all those experiences.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but did that for a few months before I transitioned back to working with the group uh, who we started the original dispensaries with. I worked with them for that was in late 2021 when I transitioned back to working with them. And we continued in the dispensary space, opening and operating dispensaries in West Virginia. And then we also simultaneously were working on opening up a infuser facility in Illinois, just outside of Chicago. And a lot of different things going on in the background during that time too. Some other licenses and things that we worked on trying to bring to fruition that as the game goes, did and didn't actually come to fruition. But yeah, it's been a crazy, I guess, officially, professionally, what is that, 6 years? Yeah, 6 years. So it's been a interesting and fun and exciting ride. So definitely that I feel privileged to have taken up to this point. So yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, you've been doing a lot. Been doing a lot since you got to PA, you know?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's been good. It's been good. Again, I feel really fortunate. So, like I said, came to PA. Actually moved to Pennsylvania from Tennessee. And I'm slightly older than you, AP. So I'll say in my lifetime, I never thought that working in the cannabis industry, putting that on a resume, would be something
Yeah,
that I would be able to do. So yeah, when I moved up here in 2018, it was my wife is actually from Pennsylvania.
word.
She moved to Tennessee with me in 2010. She had been trying to get me to move back up to Pennsylvania for a long time.
Yeah.
And I wasn't necessarily against it, but I was like, Tennessee is where I'm from, yada yada.
Mhm.
Um, but I told her if Pennsylvania ever legalizes cannabis, we can move. Because I was already, while I was in Tennessee, I was already doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah. What was
In
that like?
in
Just growing up there? Because for those that
um
don't know, I mean, Tennessee was very strict with
yeah, yeah,
cannabis.
Tennessee was kind of like a
Like a whew.
what's the
No.
what's the what's the term that they use? Zero tolerance. It's
Yeah.
one of those kind of
Yeah.
zero. I mean, but it's interesting because Tennessee has a pretty rich history in terms of cultivating cannabis and different things like that. It's definitely a
Oh yeah.
farming state. Um, but no, so for me, I mean, in terms of what living in Tennessee and participating in cannabis culture was like. Um, it was very, I was introduced to cannabis probably, I guess, man, I may have been like in the seventh grade,
Yeah.
allegedly.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, and some of my friends, it was like one night I was just rolling around with some of my and I was with my friends we were with their older cousins.
Yeah.
And it might have even been actually, it was probably around this time of year. It was like holiday times. I remember it was cold. I don't remember specifically. But we were just at somebody's house and they were just passing blunts on blunts on blunts.
Yep.
And, I was not going to be the one to not take it.
Yep.
Um, so
Not that
I
you
took
subdued to peer pressure.
No, no, not at all, not at all. But it was interesting that because kind of I'm similar to everybody's or a lot of people's story. In the moment, I don't think I really realized I was high, but
Yeah.
thinking back on it after the fact, even I mean recently after the fact, like it was probably. I look back on it and it was just like, man, that was a very hazy night. I don't really remember. Like, I kind of remember where I was and I kind of remember who I was with, but I don't really remember it too clearly. So that lets me know
Yeah.
it was working. It was working. So that was kind of my introduction to it. Um, and I was super young, so it wasn't anything that I was doing real consistently at the time. It was just an every now and then thing,
Yeah.
probably until I was in high school. Once I got to high school, again, just me and my friends kind of consuming a little bit more consistently. Um, and at that time, I never even really thought of it, but as anything. First of all, at that point, I had never thought about cultivating it. I
Yeah.
wasn't really even thinking about where it was coming from or how we were getting it. I was just consuming it.
Hmm.
And it was so ingrained at us from an early age that it was such a negative thing. It was like I was consuming cannabis, but I was like, man, it was still in the back of my head, like it wasn't good for me, but it was
Yeah.
like,
Mm.
I enjoy it, so I'm gonna do it anyway. Kind of like drinking.
Yeah.
It was just a way to have fun with your friends and relax and chill. It was just something that we did. Um, and so that was cool. I mean, I enjoyed it. I made it through high school. I was, honor roll student, played
Yeah.
basketball, played football,
Nice.
all of those things. While consuming cannabis pretty frequently, throughout my high school career. So, um, I didn't feel like it held me back, at all. I
Clearly,
feel like it
clearly not.
and as I'm sure most people are, when you're going through high school, not that it was a difficult time for me. I feel like, I was a pretty popular kid in high school, and like I said, I was playing sports, but just, different stresses, whether it be just school or different things with your family that you deal with. I feel like it was kind of unknowingly a little bit of a coping mechanism. Um, so that was kind of that time during high school,
Yeah.
and then transitioned to college. So college, I actually left Tennessee, moved to Atlanta, and went to high school at Morehouse. I mean, went to college at Morehouse College. Played football there,
Nice.
and for a time when I was in college, I think it was because of football. I kind of backed off of cannabis a little bit.
Yeah.
it was way more intense football that is in college than it was in high school. It was a lot more rigid and structured, a lot more responsibility. It was a little bit more like a job.
And Georgia's
Um,
is still was still not that keen on cannabis either.
yeah, yeah, still very, very
No tolerance.
yeah, still very little tolerance for cannabis. However, um there's some very quality cannabis. In Atlanta
Yeah,
is where I was introduced to quality cannabis, and it could be just because I was getting a little bit older.
yeah,
But I think I mean Atlanta being the type of place that it is, where even at that time, it was gaining popularity as a place for entertainers and kind of the entertainment industry to be. The music industry has always been very prevalent in that Atlanta scene too. So I think a lot of that entertainment like aspect to Atlanta, um, and there's a lot of colleges in Atlanta too in that area.
yeah.
I think that is a good um catalyst for bringing good cannabis there, because I don't
Oh
think a
yeah,
lot of it was cultivated there. But like I said, at the beginning of my college career, I kind of backed off of it a little bit because I was getting adjusted, trying to do well in school, trying to you know do improve myself on the football field. And at that time, it was still mentally ingrained in me that this was a negative thing that I was doing, and it was something that I needed to try not to do.
yeah.
um
And be hard with
so
your
I kind
teammates too. Like if your teammates weren't really blazing a lot too, these are the people you're around all the time.
Well, yeah, some of us were and some of us weren't. Like, and that's kind of coincidentally, that's kind of how I started to consume cannabis again. Because another part of I think another part of me not consuming cannabis is we had to take these drug tests, right? And so, it was like random. They would call maybe like 10 to 12 people on the team to come take these tests.
Damn.
And so I was like, I can't get caught smoking,
Yeah.
yada yada yada. So I was like, cool. But then I started noticing guys who smoke all the time was like they was taking tests, but there was no, like, nobody was saying anything about people getting caught smoking or testing positive
Huh.
for this, testing positive for that. So I started asking some questions. I was like, man, we was just at a party last night. I could have sworn you. It's like, and they're like, yeah, man, they don't test for cannabis, man. They're not testing for cannabis. They're testing for, at least what they told me, was for performance enhancing drugs. So, steroids, different
Oh
things like that.
wow, yeah,
And
makes sense.
I don't even know if they were testing for what some people might consider more quote unquote hardcore drugs, like cocaine or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
people's pleasure is. I don't know what they were testing for, but I do know that they were not testing for
for
cannabis
weed.
based off the results. So that kind of opened my eyes a little bit. I was like, okay, all right, well,
Nice,
maybe I can,
nice.
smoke a little bit here and there.
Yeah,
Um, but then probably, I guess I was probably a junior in college. And just at that point, I was comfortable in my place playing football. I felt confident. I was leader on the team, different things like that. I was doing well in school, so I felt a little bit more relaxed. Like I could kind of be myself a little bit more. So I started consuming cannabis more frequently again, very very frequently at this point, because I'm not living at home. I can pretty
yeah,
much do what I want to do if I'm not playing football. So started consuming cannabis very frequently. And like I said, it was compared to what I was smoking in Tennessee, it was
yeah.
pretty high quality.
Nice. The
And so,
headies.
and that right, exactly. And as I got continued to move throughout my college career, we it was like it was a transition. Like we were smoking decent cannabis, but we would always try to find better and better cannabis, and we were,
Oh yeah.
because we didn't have to smoke as much. The experience was better.
Hmm.
And it was, you were people, again, not that it's a peer pressure, but there's just as I think as you start to get a little bit older and you get exposed to some certain things, I think you try to find a higher quality of, you appreciate it more. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like when I
yeah,
was a kid, I was just smoking to get high, but then I was like, as I'm smoking more and more and more, I'm like, man, there's definitely a difference
Yes.
between quality and what's not quality, you know.
Hmm.
And I think I started to have an understanding of that. And when I did begin to have that understanding, it kind of made me, you know, wanna find, you know, put in a little bit more effort to find the quality cannabis. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of how things were going for me during my time in Atlanta. I stayed in Atlanta for a little bit after school, after I graduated, and spent, you know, a small amount of time in New York as well, which was a whole nother level of
Oh
cannabis.
wow. Oh
It
yeah,
was
dude.
short. My time in New York was short lived. I was up there studying menswear design
Nice.
in the city. And it was short lived. It probably lasted for about a year. It was like right in 2008, so it was right when the recession hit.
Mm,
And when the recession hit, it was not the best time to be living in New York as a student.
no.
Um,
Or a designer,
fi-
you know.
exactly, exactly. So financially, um, financially, it was best for me to come back to Tennessee at that time. So that's what I did. But I think all that time in Atlanta and all that time in New York, kind of opened my eyes up a lot to different possibilities in terms of career choices and different things like that. And a lot more than what had experienced up to the point where I was in high school in Tennessee. So
Yeah.
I really appreciated that time, and it kind of, before I went to college, I was kind of like on a path where, you know, I wanted to be traditionally like, you know, lawyer, doctor, you know, a
Yeah.
lot of traditional occupational things. But then I think seeing a lot of the alternative career paths that I saw people going down from school, I was like, well, you know, maybe I should try to pursue something that I really have interest in, which is kind of what led me down the fashion path initially.
Yeah.
Um,
That's pretty sick.
and so, yeah, so I came back to Tennessee, and I worked a few jobs before I was working as a product developer for Johnston and Murphy, which is like a men's shoe and apparel company,
Nice.
men's and women's actually. And so I was doing that. I was kind of in my passion, but that was around the same time. I want to say that was like around, it was just after actually, um, just after Colorado and Washington had legalized.
Nice.
So when that happened, I was like, damn, okay, like this is for real. Like people are out
It's
here.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's happening. People are actually starting real businesses. Um, via cannabis. You know what I'm saying? And at that point, I still don't. I still think it was like I hadn't gotten to a point where I was thinking of it as a positive thing. It was so ingrained in me that it was a negative thing and something that I should be hiding.
Yeah.
But that kind of flipped a light switch on for me. Like, okay, man, people are starting businesses with this. This is, you know, because I did, you know about different medical programs that existed in various places throughout the state, at that point, which I think kind of, you know, gave me an inclination. Well, and actually, I think I knew it wasn't a bad thing because I had done it for so long and it hadn't had a negative impact on my life, but
Yeah.
it was still something that I was hiding. Let me say that.
For
I was like,
sure.
I needed to hide this. I didn't need to, like, I
And that
was.
that's like a lot
I,
of people, even still, I feel like, you know.
Well, yeah, exactly, exactly. But I think in when it when it was being legalized for adult use, I think that kind of, like I said, hit a light switch in me where I was like, man, this isn't something that I need to hide. This is something that I need to, even though it was still very prohibited in Tennessee, I was, you know,
Yeah.
I was kind of like, this is something that I kind of need to let people know that I'm into, and to,
A-
as a way to normalize it, like, you know,
yeah. Advocate for it.
I'm exactly being an advocate. I'm successful in my career at this point. Um, you know, I'm doing positive things, but and yet I smoke cannabis
Yeah.
every day consistently. Um, and so that was my thing. That was kind of what I started to want to do, and that was kind of the time that I started wanting to pursue it as an occupation. And so I started to learn a little bit more about cannabis, both from a uh, business perspective, I kind of started to dive into it from a cultural perspective, kind of understand like laws and regulations. Um, and then also from an advocacy standpoint, in Nashville they did have, which was like 30 minutes where I'm from, specifically from
Okay.
Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I am not from Nashville. I want to
Uh-oh.
specifically say that.
Uh-oh. I didn't know there was
I'm
a beef we had to settle right there,
Well,
but
no,
the
no, no.
line is
There's no
drawn.
beef.
He's
There's
not from
no
there.
beef.
All right, Nashville.
I want to be clear. There's no beef. However, I'm not one of those people who live outside the city and say I'm from the city. I
Oh,
am
I
from
got you.
Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Yeah.
But in Nashville, there were normal chapters there. And so I joined normal.
Nice.
I started to advocate through that path.
This episode is brought to you by Waddle, the world's fastest and easiest way to review and track your medicinal cannabis products. Waddle offers batch-specific reviews, so you'll know what to stash and what to trash. It's exclusively available for Pennsylvania medical cannabis patients. Waddle helps you take the guesswork out of your cannabis journey and ensures transparency with the verified product tracking. Download Waddle now on iOS or Android. That's WODL, and take control of your cannabis experience today.
And I think really when I started to learn about the history of cannabis and kind of laws and regulations surrounding cannabis and trying to advocate for changing those laws, I kind of learned a lot more, obviously, about why cannabis was made illegal. What was the emphasis behind that, and that made me just want to be involved more and learn more and more and more.
Yeah.
So the first aspect of my learning was more on that cannabis, on the cultural and regulatory side of it. But then it was like you mentioned, I had moved back to Tennessee after being in Atlanta and New York, and I was like, man, like I'm consistently paying the prices. I think prices at that time were like, for an eighth was maybe like 50 or $60, and it wasn't quality.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
No.
saying? It wasn't what I was
No.
getting in Atlanta and what I was getting in New York. So I was starting to get really frustrated
It's
because I
expensive.
couldn't,
Yeah.
it was expensive and I couldn't find the quality that I was used to consuming
Yes.
in those other places where I was. So that led me to start looking into, okay, you know, h-
There's
how
only
can I
one other
cultivate?
option there, Jimmy.
Right, right. My options are pretty limited. And so, I put up a tent at the
Mhm.
crib and I was
Mhm.
like, um, I was just doing some little small experiments on my own, just had like a little, I don't know. It was literally in me and my wife's bedroom. So it was maybe, I don't know, maybe like a 3x2,
Yes.
if
Single
not a
plant.
2x2. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, like one or two plants at a time. Uh just doing that. And then we had a little small space out in the backyard. So I built a little hoop house and
Nice, dude.
started to do some cultivation back there. And, as many people, when you first start out, it wasn't, exactly what you wanted it to be, but it was
Mhm.
still, better than, what I was able to get, and two, I wasn't having to pay for it. So
Yeah.
I was like, this is working for me. But lot of different, trial and error,
Oh yeah.
learning specifically. And this is still the case, and it will always be the case. But the post, that's when I learned that the post harvest processing is the most difficult part
Yep.
to get right.
Yep.
It's the hardest, and it's the most important part to get right. Well,
Mhm.
the whole process is important,
Yeah, but the,
but
the the drying is where all the magic happens, really. You know.
exactly, exactly. The drying is where you can draw the line between what's quality and what's not quality.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I was just kind of doing my thing in Tennessee, and so that's when I was kind of like, okay, this could potentially, I saw businesses opening all over the country. Well, not all over, but in those places where it's
Yeah.
been legalized, and I was like, this is opportunity for me. But I couldn't go all the way to the West Coast because, like I said, my wife's from PA. she already felt like she was far enough away from home in Tennessee. And so I was like, okay. And then there started to be some rumblings, I think maybe in like 2016 about PA trying to legalize it medically.
Yeah. Yeah, like
And so I was like,
2015, 2016. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I was telling Karis, I was like, yeah, I was like, hey, if this happens, we can move for sure. I'm with it.
Yeah.
Um and so no, yeah, like you said, it was 2015 because 2016 is when PA
Yeah.
voted, or no, not voted, but when it was when it was passed for medical, when the medical act was passed and it was going to be a thing. So
Yeah.
that happened, and she was kind of looking at me like, hey, you
Let's
said,
go.
you know
Yeah.
exactly, let's go. And
Yeah.
I was like, all right. I was like, cool. So I started to, just get myself prepared again, just studying and learning primarily about cultivating quality.
Yeah.
Initially through the cultivation process is really what I was most focused on. And just understanding, okay, where does quality come from? Why is certain things quality? Starting to learn about a little bit. And at this point, like, I knew about concentrates and stuff. Like, people in Tennessee would have concentrates, but
Yeah.
it it was so
Uh,
terrible at that, because this was like at this point, this was like right when concentrates were getting big everywhere. So it was
yeah.
like, and when stuff just trickled down to Tennessee, we were like the last in terms
The
of
last stop.
cannabis.
Oh man.
Exactly, we were like the
Oh.
last stop. So I was seeing people, like, people would, we were always had bones and stuff with flour, but I would see
Yeah.
people pull out this black oil and they be like,
Oh
really? I'd be
yeah.
like, nah. It's like- I was like, I'm good, I'm good. But it was it. But that's when that's what kind of opened my eyes. So I was like, okay, so there's different forms, and because I had just done the flour really up to that point in edibles. Um, and so, but I was, just again, just learning, YouTube,
Yep.
Google,
Yep.
just really studying that way primarily. When I was doing all the cultivating stuff that I was doing out there, small scale, I was like, Jorge Cervantes' book is, what I use as kind of
Hmm.
my guide for that. Um, so yeah, so I guess it was probably sometime in 2017. Once licenses started to be issued here in PA, I was like, PA was posting once they issued the licenses, they were posting all of the redacted applications online and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So what I started to do, I started to go through all of the different redacted applications and kind of see who had the same vision for what they wanted cannabis to be in Pennsylvania that I did, in terms of, still kind of sticking to what it was from a cultural perspective,
Yeah.
kind of understanding the medical aspects of it, and different things like that. And really, a lot of the applications were like crazy redacted. Like, you couldn't even barely read any information about what the business was trying to do. And two,
It's
a
very
big
hidden.
part of exactly, exactly. And two, at that point, I guess, again, it's 2016, 2017, a big piece of what I was looking for is like, who is, trying to, which was crazy, I guess, early for this type of thinking at that time, but like, who is really trying to be socially equitable in the way that they're running their business, in terms of, bringing on people who have been predominantly harmed by the drug war and by different laws and regulations that have been in place to that point.
Yeah.
Obviously that was, really personal to me. And I don't know if we're calling our company name, but the company that I landed with,
Oh, that's fine. I don't care.
I'll just leave it at the company that I landed with. The reason that they stood out to me is because they, really were emphasizing well, first of all, they were one of the only applications that wasn't 99% redacted.
Yeah.
And two, looking in, I can't recall specifically, but PA like required you to have some type of social equity component to your
Hmm.
application, and the different things that they were mentioning in there, and that they laid out as terms of their plan and how they were going to do the hiring, different things like that. It resonated with me. So I guess it was 2017, maybe like summer or fall of 2017. I came up to PA, and I just found all these addresses. Well, actually, I was looking for different addresses of companies, and they were really hard to find. I really couldn't find any. But that particular company was one that had an office address listed. And so I printed out a resume, went there and dropped off my resume. Like I knocked on this door. It was not, at this time, this was before there was any stores, any doctor, there was anything.
Yeah.
Knocked on the door, and I handed my resume to this to a girl who looked a young girl. And I dropped it off. I mean, she was very surprised to see me there. First of all, she was like, "What? Like, how do you even know that we're here? This is
Yeah.
we're running a couple businesses. We hadn't even really started to do anything with this cannabis license yet. Like, how do you even know we're here?" And I was like, "Well, I was, looking at the applications, et cetera, online." And she was like, "All right, cool." So she took my resume. That was probably, like I said, summer,
Because
maybe early fall.
we didn't launch Sellersville yet at that point,
Oh,
right? That
bruh,
was
they
like
haven't.
before it was even. That's probably
It wasn't
before
a
even
thing.
like that's probably even before like Josh and I were even brought on board.
Yes, this was
Yeah.
before there was only
Damn, you
one
got to that before I did, Jimmy. I didn't even know that.
there was only one employee, and it was Elena. Elena was the only
Yeah, that's
employee,
it. Yeah, okay.
and that's who answered the door. It was Elena. She,
That's what I figured. Yeah,
because
that's
she was
funny.
she was working with Chris beforehand,
Yeah,
on some non-cannabis stuff and doing some intern marketing stuff. But she was starting this process, and I get obviously they weren't expecting it, but I just knocked on the door, handed her my resume, and like you said, this was before they had even started to work on the business.
yeah,
Um, but I guess things progressed, and maybe it might have been like November or December. Josh hit me up, and
yeah.
Josh was like, he was telling me, and he was like, "Well, we're starting to have interviews at this time. We would really like for you to come." And I was like, "Man, I'm in Tennessee. I don't know if I'll be able to make it. Um, I'd love to do a phone interview or whatever." And we hadn't even really started making our moving plans yet.
Yeah,
And so, I hung up with him, and I was like, "Dang, this is like I got a chance to interview
yeah,
for this." I'm like, "Damn, I got to figure this out." So I went online. I was looking for flights, and it just so happened that there was an affordable flight that I could get to PA in like a couple weeks. So I called him. I called Josh right back. I was like, "Hey, I'll be there this time. Come for the interview." So,
yeah.
so things were working out, and so I jumped on a plane, flew up here, actually without my wife at that point. I just came up here, stayed at her parents' house, went and interviewed with Adina and Josh.
Nice.
Didn't And at that point I didn't even know what position I was interviewing for. They didn't even have a position. It was just like, just
Yeah.
come interview to be a part of this dispensary group. I was like, all right, cool. I was like,
All
cool.
right,
I don't even care.
man.
I don't even care what position it is. It's like I'm with it.
Yeah. Now that
Um,
you say it, I'm like trying to recall my interview with them, and I'm just like, I don't even know if I had one. Like, I think it was just like, I don't even remember, dude. That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, so I came up, interviewed with them, and even at the end of the interview, I didn't know what position it was for, but I said to him at the end of the interview, because like in my whole time, and like I said, when I was being open up to different careers, like buying and creative directing was like the space that I wanted to be in.
Yeah.
And so I told him at the end of the interview, I was like, I don't really know what positions you guys have available, but the position that I'm most interested in is buying. Um,
Hell yeah.
and they were like, and I think Adina may have said at that time, I don't know if she said it directly to me, or I just remember this in conversation after the fact later down the road. She was like, Chris will never let anybody else do the buying. Like
Yeah.
that's her, like that's what she does. She'll never
Yeah.
let anybody do that.
Yep.
But so Josh called me, and he was like, "Hey man, we want you to come on as store manager, yada yada yada." I was very surprised. I was like, "All right," I was like very surprised and excited when I got the offer. And so we started making our plans to move up here. We moved up in, I guess it was March of no, February 2018. I remember it specifically because it was like crazy snowstorm on the
Yep.
day that we actually moved up here. It
Well,
was like
welcome back.
dumb.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Welcome to PA, man.
Exactly. It was like a crazy snowstorm and I was like, damn, okay. And I still have the video of when we were driving into Pennsylvania in the U-Haul, like and it's showing a sign like welcome to Pennsylvania. It's like
Yeah,
I'm like, so it was, I mean, I was excited, man. It was like a dream come true for me. And so yeah, man, that's when, we were doing our thing in Sellersville. And it was crazy how many people we were seeing at that point. I think we were one of the only
insane, dude.
dispensaries open. And then
Insane
at that point, people hadn't even had their consultation that they had to be able to buy. So I remember like people sitting in
for
not even be able to
hours
buy shit.
just to
Yeah,
sit
not even
there.
to buy anything, just sitting there. And we didn't even have anything for them to buy. It was like there was
No,
no, there was no, bro.
it's insane. It was
We may have had
insane.
like a few
Oh my
cartridges and a
God.
bunch of
Yeah.
capsules and stuff like that.
Yeah, maybe a
Um,
RSO, but if
right,
that,
exactly,
or like an
exactly.
$80 tincture, dude. It's just like, holy
Maybe,
shit, this is
maybe.
insane.
But hey, the people were there.
Yeah.
The people were like, whatever y'all got, we will
And we were
take it. But
stoked
it
for
was
those tinctures, dude.
exactly. They were like, whatever you have, we will take. And it was, and two, honestly, I think that was good for me because at that time, like I said, I knew about cartridges, I knew about concentrates, I knew about those things, but I hadn't really had hands-on experience with stuff
Yeah.
that was quality. At least, quality enough for me to consume. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think
and
it
it
was a
was
good introductory to medical side of cannabis because, like,
for sure, for
coming from
sure.
the Colorado, like heavy medical, but even faster paced rec side before I came to PA, like it's just a whole nother like chill the throttle down, be more intimate with the people, which your
Yeah.
cadence matches it perfectly. But I went in there like, yo, come on, let's go. How many people want it? Who wants their terps, dude? What do you need? What do you want? And I was like, all right, you gotta relax, dude. You gotta chill out. Um, so that was a little learning curve for me, but your cadence matched it perfectly.
Yeah,
Because you would take your time, man. You would like people would appreciate you. Like you would be bud tending next to me, and you would take the time. Not that I wouldn't.
hmm
Um,
hmm
like you really cared of one, it was helping you with your learning process, and two, just like giving that extra care to those patients. Really defined your name in the program as well, which is great. You know.
Yeah, man, and I think that comes from just having a background in service, man. I think a lot of the jobs and different things that I had done in my career up to that point, before I started in product development with Johnson and Murphy, a lot of it was customer service oriented. And then too, like you said, I'm just a very like chill, nonchalant, laid back dude.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I could tell too that a bunch of people were coming in there didn't really have any idea about the products that we had. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I knew they were going to need a lot of explaining. And then too, I think it came from, being in Tennessee, being somebody who was open to, uh, talking about their cannabis use and different things like that. And all of the different things that come along with cannabis, whether it's the actual different forms of cannabis or cannabis accessories and different things like that. I was always somebody who was like explaining, whether it be to my friends or to my family, like, hey, this is what this is. This is what this does. This is why you would want to use this instead of this, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that really prepared me well to be in that particular position. And I think it was real cool, man. I think like um when we started that, it was real cool because like small, it was just a one store.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we were a family, man. We were kicking it.
Yeah.
That's one of the first times that I remember people getting up, people working like all day, and then like on the day that we didn't have to work, like people getting up, like just smoking,
Yeah.
chilling, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying, kicking it together. That was real cool. And that's, I think, obviously between people like you, Josh, Joaquin, all of us, I think we really had a special connection at the beginning of that. So
Oh
that was
yeah.
real cool.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. And that's kind of that's what I see the cannabis. That's I don't feel like that's what it is today, at least not here in PA.
No, unfortunately not.
But that's what I wanted it. I was getting what I wanted at that point. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think it'll come back. I think once we can
oh, for sure,
allow
for sure.
like more events, like so I'll chime into what you just said, like that camaraderie we had. I've been out of the social cannabis scene for a while just because it's kind of crazy. Um,
Hmm.
but my homie Luke, he just threw an event in Pittsburgh, and it
Oh,
was
nice.
yo, it was so cool. Like to have people again in the same space, all coming for cannabis,
Hmm.
talking about genetics, talking about strains, and being able to consume because
Hmm.
we don't have parties like that in PA. Um,
Right, right.
so I'm
What was the
excited
name
for
of that
what's to
party?
come. So that was called like Out in the Cold. Luke is launching Gratitude Gardens in PA. So
Luke K.
yeah,
Last name K. Yeah, hey, that's my
yep,
guy.
yeah, man.
That's my guy. I
Yeah,
love
man.
Luke, man. I love
Yep.
Luke. He's one of the people that I worked with during my time at Terravida as a buyer.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the people that I worked with that we always
Because he was probably at
saw eye to
Moxie,
eye.
Moxie
Yeah,
then, right? Yep,
yeah,
yep. When they
exactly.
first launched, so he launched it with them. Yeah, dude. And he, came in with Standard Farms, kind of did their
Hmm.
thing, which was great to see where they became from when they first started in the program. Like to see where
Yeah,
they are
yeah,
now, dude. Is
yeah. It's totally
I
different.
never thought that I would
Totally different.
advocate one for rosin and PA, but two to be like, yo, Standard Farms is a company that's making it. Um, Like they didn't
Yeah,
even know how to
man.
make a CO2 syringe when the program first started. So
Complete 180, man. And I
um,
know he's a big driver behind that, man. So kudos,
yeah,
so
yeah. So
kudos to him for
he
sure.
did his thing there. Now he's gonna do his thing. He gets his chance to do his thing again. And anything that man's been a part of has been really cool. So I'm excited. So he threw that and Gratitude Gardens. I mean, it was just cool to see it and to get that
Yep.
feel back, especially for me, because I really only socialize when it has to be with cannabis.
Check out brownbagfarmgoods.com, an online seed bank that specializes in hash strains, landrace hybrids, and a wide variety of top breeders, including MTS Farms, Top Dog Seeds, Bloom Seed Co., and dozens more. Free shipping on all U.S. orders and international shipping is available as well. Brown Bag Farm Goods. Grow the seeds that will grow you.
Yeah, yeah,
So to
yeah,
like
yeah,
to
yeah.
be back in that space again, it was just like, yo, like I was texting my lady, this is so cool. Like I want to
I'm so
start throwing this shit. Like I need
I'm
to
so
like
glad you said that, man. I'm so glad you said because I talk to Luke every now and then.
yeah,
And I have been seeing some stuff online with the Gratitude Gardens. And I didn't even know you guys were tight like that. But I mean, I know, like, well, like I said, in terms of cannabis, I think we're all on the very similar wavelength.
yeah,
Um, and so I'm excited. That warms my heart, man. That warms
yeah,
my heart to hear
yeah.
that he's out there doing that, and he's been in it. He's been in it so long since 2018. It's
Mm-hmm.
specifically talking about the PA industry. Um, and kudos to him for kind of sticking with it because I know he was in some. I want to speak on his situations, but I know situations weren't perfect. But
Yeah,
him sticking around and kind of getting to a point where now it looks like he's kind of doing some stuff that he really is, behind
yeah.
mentally, emotionally, some stuff that really fits with.
Mm-hmm.
And he always did his thing the way he wanted to do it, but now it looks like it's kind of transitioning, like you said, it'll come back. I think this is the beginning of that type of
Yeah.
vibe coming back to PA into the industry, and he never left. I mean, that's one thing I was always super surprised by in PA is just what the underground scene was. I was like, damn, I didn't know it was popping up here in PA
Oh
like
yeah.
that. Like,
Oh yeah.
like
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, for
I
sure,
I
for
love our
sure.
underground scene. I can't wait to bring once laws change, bring more shit to light just because like
Yeah, man.
PA is
Yeah.
pretty enriched when it comes to the terps. We got a
Way
lot
like
of
seriously, man. It's like
for
and no,
years.
everywhere that I've went and that I've like went to find um, quality cannabis or anywhere that I ever went and there was quality cannabis around, it was like oh, this dude came out here from PA. This dude came out here from PA. This dude's from PA. This dude's from New Hope. This dude's from. I was
Yeah.
like, what?
What the
Like,
heck?
and then
Yeah.
and then messing with like people like you and Josh and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of different people. It's like, and it's different. It's different than like even traditional underground is like, people hustling. You know what I'm saying? Not that
Yeah.
people weren't out here hustling,
Yeah.
but people were hustling, but at the same time they were always trying to make sure that shit was like top notch, like the best that it could be.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I appreciate about PA is the devotion to quality that you find, and
Yeah.
specifically in the underground market for sure.
Yeah. I think it ruined me because like you know me, man, and my standards, like I try to be humble around a lot of people with it, but like my standards are nuts, so I look at some
Yeah,
shit,
yeah,
but it's
yeah,
like it's how it's always been here. Like people have always
yeah,
held it to such a high bar,
yeah.
like growing up, the people I grew up with were the same way, so it's like
Hmm.
I just followed their footsteps, and then I'm just like,
But
yo,
I
turn
don't
it
think
down.
it's to your detriment. I think it's I think maybe where the industry and stuff is right now, it's like not
Yeah.
the
Well,
most
it clashes very
recognized thing.
hard
Yeah,
with the
it
like,
clashes.
yeah, my
Exactly. And it's not the
attitude to the commercial cannabis realm, and that
yeah.
attitude definitely clashes egos.
But the commitment though, the commitment
Yeah,
and the knowledge of what the potential of cannabis is,
yes.
I think that's important for like the future. I mean,
Oh yeah, dude.
timing is everything, but I think even if you feel like it's not to your benefit right now, I think for sure, I
I
think it
think
is to
so.
your benefit, and I think it
Yeah,
will be even more to your benefit as things kind of change.
yeah. Well, it forms great relationships that way, and it weaves a lot
Uh,
of shit out. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I,
yeah, yeah.
sometimes I
Yeah,
don't
you
hold
see
my
who's in
tongue
it
when
for
it
what.
comes to weed, so it's like, oh shit. But it weaves it out, and I think it's cool. You know?
Yeah, and people, and the thing is, other people who appreciate quality will appreciate that because I'm similar where I like I'll consume stuff and I'll be like, man, like this is good, but I don't feel like it's as good as it can be. And I'll get around
Yeah,
some people who are like, man, this shit is great.
yeah,
But then I'll be around people like you and Josh, and then you'll be like, well, yeah, it's good. You guys are, I can trust I can trust, like, if you guys say something that's quality,
yeah,
I can be like, okay, I'm not tripping. Like,
yeah,
I wasn't tripping for saying this wasn't
yeah,
good when other people were saying it
yeah.
was good. Like, cause that throws me off a little bit. I'll be like, man, am I tripping or
No, I won't be hitting you
like,
the side eye when you're hitting some random joint, being like, "Yo, why is he even hitting? Why you hitting that, Jimmy? Why you don't even hit that, Jimmy?" Never, never.
oh man.
No,
So
you're
I
up there.
appreciate that. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
yeah, yeah. That's
Um,
cool. So, what's it like? It's one of the things I think so cool, which I thought I was chilling with Chris L the other day, and it came to
oh,
me.
nice.
It came to me because he was talking to me about just like a buyer, because I never
Hmm.
really thought about what that means, and
Hmm.
I've never really talked to him about it. And I was like, this would be a great thing for me to talk to Jimmy about when I get him on here, because it's basically like you're just legally slanging high dollar amounts of cannabis when you look
Yeah,
at it, right?
it is
Like you're
pretty
holding
crazy
a high
when you really think
account.
about what you're doing. Yeah, when you really think about what you're doing, especially to the level that we were doing it in a dispensary. Like every
Yeah.
now and then, I would talk to some people who like I would talk to people back in Georgia and Tennessee about what I was doing,
Yeah.
and like and when I would talk to them after the conversation, I'd be like, damn, we really are just buying and selling pounds and pounds and pounds, and
Yeah,
it's like
dude. I'm slinging
it's
elbows like
crazy.
it's nothing.
It is crazy. It
Yeah.
was but the thing is, like, at the same time, and it's really how it should be. Um, it was business. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? I didn't, like being in it, I didn't even think of it like I didn't have the realization, at least not in the moment when I was doing it, that what I was doing was was so illegal somewhere else. And if I told somebody that I
What?
was just moving pounds on a daily basis, like it would be a problem.
Like, yo, Jimmy, you
But
all right? Does your wife know?
but but yeah, man, being I'm so yeah, so probably I guess it was 10 months after, managing the stores and we had opened it, that I transitioned into the buyer role because Chris as the owner was kind of trying to grow the business and trying to, do she got to the point where she had to stop working on the business and or working in the business and had to start working
Yeah.
on the business.
Yeah.
And so that's what gave me the opportunity. And And really, the reason why I wanted to get into buying is kind of like what we were just talking about. Is like to be a good buyer, you have to have two things. I think you have to understand and the product and know what quality is,
Yeah.
and you also have to understand the market or who your consumer is.
Hmm.
And so I think I had a really good pulse on both of those, the quality and product part from just, the years and years of studying and learning about cannabis and having that thirst for knowledge in that realm.
Yeah.
And then on the consumer, understanding the consumer and the market side, I think that's where I attribute that to my my previous career, like in traditional corporate America. Like I was able to understand some pieces of the business that may be foreign to somebody who hadn't really been involved in that. So I like all those experiences kind of led me to that. um but yeah, man, it was great, man. It was really exciting because, and it was unique because even at the point when I started buying for Terravida, um we didn't like all the product that's online now was still like, I think when I started we weren't even selling flour yet. We were
Yeah.
still concentrates only. um
Such
and
a
it was
crazy day, dude.
it was crazy. It was very crazy. It was unbelievable, man. But the part, I mean, about buying that I enjoy the most is like the relationship piece,
Yeah.
um, and which is actually how I became so cool with Luke, because like buying here in PA, especially at that time when the industry was so young, the people once you got to the executive level, uh, they weren't really as familiar with cannabis as a lot of us were. A lot of us
Yeah.
who were like in the stores and working with patients on a daily basis, and people who had consumed for consistently. I realized that there was a lot of people who were just getting brought in from traditional corporate America who didn't have the cannabis background,
Yeah.
and so it was a balance of trying to figure out
Which is so
how to
weird
best.
navigating.
Yeah, yeah, it was because
I don't
you
think people that
had.
don't work in the space understand like how weird navigating the professional cannabis space can be with all the characters that you deal with. Because
Yeah, yeah,
everyone
but
just thinks like cannabis, cool, they're all smoke, they're all probably like mad chill. And it's like, yeah, that's the case. But the whole other edge of professionalism like just brings on all different characteristics of people that maybe not even smoke, but they're interested in cannabis. So it's always funny
exactly.
navigating that professionally. Wait, your your mic cut out. So it said your mic stopped. Talk real quick.
I forget. Am I
Oh,
back?
yeah, you're back. Your
I
video's
for,
out, but your audio's in.
okay, cool. I forgot to turn on the do not disturb. Let me turn that on.
Oh, you're good. I was like, oh shit, I'm glad I caught that.
I
Ha!
forgot about that.
Yeah, that's right, dude. I'm an engineer. What do you know about it? What's up, dude? Jada Kiss, hit me up.
Hey. um,
But
but
anyway.
yeah, yeah. So getting into the buying, man, that was it was like you had to feel people out because buying also was about relationship building, man. Because like it's very hard, and I think this is another thing that people don't know. It's very hard as a dispensary because of the regulatory structure, and this I think is probably anywhere in the U.S. It's very hard to be like a profitable entity because of the way that you're taxed.
Yeah.
And so it was so my thing when I was a buyer in the dispensaries was always trying to get. I was looking at it from a consumer's perspective. So I understood, one, the type of quality that we wanted, but then two, I also knew that the prices were crazy. And so I was
Yeah.
always trying to work with um the people that I was buying to be able to help them understand that I knew why their prices were what they were.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're trying to run a profitable business, so
Yeah.
our margins had to be at a certain level, and also I had to get prices that were palatable, to our patients who a lot of times, weren't um doing super well financially. We had a lot of patients who were struggling
Yeah, man.
financially.
Or trying to get off of medicine that insurance was covering, so they didn't they didn't
Exactly.
they didn't start dividing money and putting it aside to start, you
For
know.
cannabis.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Which was nuts
Um,
to see, heartbreaking in a lot of ways.
it was, man, it was crazy, man. It was that was probably one of the toughest part is when you like had to when you whenever somebody wasn't able to get everything that they needed for financial
Yeah,
reasons. So,
yeah,
but that's what buying was for me. It was like finding a balance between all of those things to try to satisfy all of those boxes. I to like to check all of those boxes, I guess you could say.
yeah,
Um, but really the process at that and two, it was flipped because normally as a buyer, and I think it's a little bit more this way now, um, like people who are selling stuff are coming to you to try to woo
yes,
you to, hey, I want you to buy this product. I need you to buy this product. I'm gonna
yeah,
take you out to eat. I'm gonna, do
yes,
all these things to encourage you to buy this product. Obviously, the quality of the product matters, but it was reversed. So I was very surprised that, and the reason that it was reversed is because the product quantity in Pennsylvania was so limited in terms of,
ah,
the amount of
who could
product
get
that we can
what?
bring into the store. So
True.
instead of people trying to get us to buy their products, it was almost like I was a sales guy. Like I was
Yeah,
selling us as a
selling.
dispensary
Yeah,
to like we are the place where you need to have your product. We like I would instead of them pursuing me, which is the normal course of business between the buyer and the seller, it was me, the buyer, pursuing the sellers. Like, hey, I need your
yeah,
product, which is crazy.
yeah.
I mean, I hear stories about buyers in other places where they're like, if you have a product to sell, you can't even talk to this buyer without talking to seven different other people. And I'm
Wow,
like, dang, that's totally
damn,
different
that'd be
from
nice. Yeah. Well, that's like my
totally
Colorado people. Like people will just
right.
fucking stop by, drop them stuff off, talk shop, and
Exactly.
they have all this stuff, and they're telling me about it,
Yep.
and I'm just like, oh, that must be nice to be in a state
Yeah,
like
man.
that,
Yeah, so
man.
it was a totally different game. It was a totally
Yeah,
different game. Hey,
yeah,
real quick, AP. And I know this is, I don't know, are we able to pick this up, man? I actually gotta, and I'm sure we're going a little bit longer than you planned
yeah. We
too.
have, but I've been enjoying it, so I haven't
Me too, man.
streamlined
It's,
it.
it's been
We
good
can,
talking. Are we able to pick it up at a different,
yeah,
cause I gotta go get these kids, man. I know you got
yeah,
something to do too.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Nah, Jimmy,
let's,
tell your kids they gotta wait. All right, we're in the middle of something.
I got
No,
shit to do.
yes, we
Um,
can.
but
Luckily, we have
let's,
technology, and we will. This is going to be my first part one, part two
perfect.
release.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. That's perfect. But let's pick it up as soon as we can, man. Because
Yeah.
and obviously, you and I need to talk much, much more, man, more frequently, man. Because
Oh
and
yeah.
as always, I know we've kind of always been on the same page as far as this kind of stuff goes, man. So yeah, let's
Let's do
what's the
it.
next